Hi everyone, this is Miss Pence. I wanted to send a quick video to go over some of the things that I have sent home and will be sending home because I know there's a lot to it. So each of your students received one of these parent letters. On it you see all the standards that were covered on the FSA practice test. We have the literary standards and the informational standards. You're going to notice that the difference between the two is literary has the RL, which stands for reading of literary, and informational is RI, reading of informational. If they have a check mark next to it, that means that's what they need extra support with. So for this sample, we can see the student needs it for literary as well as informational, and this just breaks down what they're expected to be able to do. Generally, most students had like 3 to 4 areas where they could improve on. I wanted to show you and kind of talk you through some of the work. So you can see up here there's this code, and the reason it's a little different, it's based off of Common Core standards. But I wrote off to the side what the Florida standard is. It's the same exact content that they're responsible for, but the coding is different. So I wanted to clarify that by writing it off to the side, and it should be on your students' copies. The good thing about this practice that we're sending home is it's very to the point and helpful for parents as well. So it breaks the standard down for you guys to be able to help the students at home also. So there's a real world connection. That's just basically how they could use this standard in life. These words to know, that's a good thing to review with them prior to starting. And you can see that the words to know is defined down here where it says breaking down the standard. There's also these little testing tips. Those are always good to look at and mention to students. From there, after it's broken down the standard, there's a practice. So you would go through and like do this with your child. You can see it explains it a little bit up here. So it breaks the standard down. Then it gives a short little text here. And then it gives some tips for where they should look. This is still a part where you would want to go over this with your child. So it just breaks down what they're responsible for knowing. After this, like where it was all the samples, there's guided practice. And that's just like what it sounds. So you're guiding them through, it's a shorter text, but then there's some questions that go along with it. These boxes off to the side, close reading, and these hint, those are really helpful for them to understand the process of the standard, and they really help with these questions. So if I were to do this with my child at home, I would go over these boxes first. I would have my child read this out loud and help with any words they don't know, and then go through the questions together. And it's okay to guide them. And then you see over here, it's actually telling them and you the correct answer. And if they chose, like, let's say they chose A, it's telling you why it's incorrect. And then it would tell you why B is correct. So it's perfectly fine for this part to go through it with them and help them. So after you've done those 2 steps, we have the independent practice. And again, that's like what it sounds. So I would have the student do this on their own. So read the article. You may want to have them read it out loud, depending on your student, because we want them to practice the standard. So if they're unfamiliar with a word, for instance, I don't know, let's see, disproved, okay, or something like that. You can help them with certain words, because we don't want to be testing right now their reading ability. We're trying to help them with the standard. So if they maybe struggle through this, you may even do something like you read a paragraph, then I'll read a paragraph, then you read a paragraph, then I'll read a paragraph. If they're able to read it independently, have them, but we don't want them to struggle too much with the reading portion of this. After they read through that, there are some questions. For the questions, try and have them do it on their own, and then go over it with them. Let me see, there's more questions. And that is it. So for students, when they finish all of this, they can bring it back to class and I will check it and let them know what's correct and what's incorrect. And let's say you guys did the independent practice, or they did, and they missed quite a few. I would just point out to them what it was they missed and either pull them in a small group or send them home to do to go over it again with you at home. So again, this sheet here, if there's a check, that means they need more work on it, and they are going to be receiving that within this week. And then the corresponding standards are written here. Okay, so you will go through the first few parts with them, and then try, and it's what we teachers call scaffold. So that means you're helping them a lot in the beginning, and then try and remove some of the scaffolds. So try and have them work a little bit more independently towards the end of the standard work. And then after they bring it back and get checked off, they will be sent back to you. So you could keep track of, like, okay, well, the student A, they did really well on RI11 because Miss Pence graded it and sent it back, and they got 7 out of 8 correct. So you may put like a little smiley face over this, or just notate somehow that they feel pretty good about this one. If they're not feeling good about it, then I would notate it on there as well. I have copies of all of these here in class in case one gets misplaced. And this is my way of keeping track of what they need as well. As always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks.